Good afternoon. We are live here today. My name is Shelly Harrison. You see a different logo up there. That's because we have a very special workshop that's going to be presented today by one of my amazing collaborative partners. So if you're a speaker, a presenter, you have talent, or you have a story, you're going to want to stay here because we have a wonderful presentation by Paul Kreider, and he is the founder of Kreider Creations LLC, and he is a consultant as well. So to get started, actually, Paul, we've got a couple of things. He is going to have a challenge towards the end. So the challenge is going to give you the opportunity to connect with Paul for a 15-minute conversation at a different time, but he's got the challenge that he's going to explain a little bit later. And also, I just want to mention the reason why we're doing this workshop today. In fact, Paul's going to be presenting, not me. I had the opportunity to work with Paul, and it was for my own company, Luminary Leaders. And he gave me an hour of his time during this workshop, where we really dug deep into me being able to go live and talk about a specific topic that was important to me. And he was very thorough, and it was just so meticulous the way that he did it, but it was eloquent, and it was something where I've never had that kind of an experience before. So without further ado, we are going to play this jingle by Dick Siegel. And this is something that Paul wanted you to hear before he goes live here. So listen and just enjoy.
Well, it's so easy. Play the hash brown. Take my hand, mama, we're going to town. Oh, what a wonderful thing to do. Eggs over easy, hash browns and you. We'll have coffee, sausage, and hot butter toast. Yes, this breakfast is really the most. Oh, what a wonderful thing to do. Eggs over easy, hash browns and you. We'll go to Angelo's, cause the place really hot. We'll go to Angelo's, where the service is tops. We'll go to Angelo's. We'll be
And we live with live experiences, technology, and all the good stuff. So, what you were listening to was this man right here. His name is Dick Siegel. And that song you heard in the chorus, eggs over easy, hash browns and toast. You go to Angelo's. So, Angelo's is actually a real place in a town called Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's where the University of Michigan is. It's about 40 minutes from Detroit. Dick Siegel lives in Ann Arbor. And in 1994, this breakfast joint, Angelo's, was doing very well for itself. It had been around at that point, been around for 40 some years, I want to say. And as an Ann Arborite, Dick Siegel, who is a musician and a producer, he wrote that jingle for Angelo's, and it caught fire, and it became the restaurant's mantra. And they would play it on, breakfast in the morning, brunch with the Beatles and the classic rock station. They would play Dick Siegel's song and remind everybody, if they want a great breakfast, to go to Angelo's. There's nothing like that place. And in fact, there's nothing like Ann Arbor, which is it's like a quintessential college town where, particularly in the fall, the foliage is just amazing. I went to school there, so I'm kind of a homer. I'm a little biased, but they have cute shops and arcades and all these different knick-knack places you can go. And the university itself was founded in 1817, and the buildings there just are remarkable. When you walk into these institution buildings, it really kind of forces you to get to work. I mean, like, let's go study. The campus is built to inspire, like many college campuses around the country. And there are some really hot attractions in Ann Arbor. Obviously, the football program, or maybe not obvious. It's the biggest football stadium in the country. You can't really maybe tell from this picture, but 115,000 people can fit into this place. It's really a place where you can lose your mind and grow, go fan crazy and really root for the home team. Really a quintessential experience that I had as a student from 1999 until 2005, both for undergrad and graduate school. So I'm stuck in these memories. These are branded in my brain, and particularly as it pertains to Angelo's, the song that Dick Siegel was singing about. This is a place you can imagine opens at 6 o'clock in the morning. And if you're not there in line by that time, you're not going to get in for another 45 minutes. So this was the fall of 2000. I was a sophomore, and me and my numbskull friends, because the menu is just amazing and the food is just remarkable, we decided, yeah, on a Sunday morning before we hit the books and get ready for the school week, we were going to go to Angelo's. We're going to get in line and see if we can get there. Now we made it. It was 6:15. So, we made it despite being slow, sluggish, and brainless kids, but we made it. And this is why, because you go to a place like Angelo's and they have an encyclopedia. And everyone remember what those things are? An encyclopedia for a menu where you can get the best, most fluffy waffles and fresh fruits. And they have every kind of eggs Benedict you can imagine with different sauces. And they're really known for their thick raisin Texas toast. Just wonderful. But Angelo's will also give you a chance to put together your own breakfast experience. You don't have to look through the encyclopedia menu. You can go and do it, create something on your own. So I was like, you know what? That's a challenge. My sophomore in college self, I said, I'll take that challenge. So I said to the waiter, and I did not believe this was possible, but I said, okay, waiter, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put together my own little breakfast sandwich. Okay. And he goes, yeah, sure. Shoot. What do you want? I said, well, I'd like an egg bagel, lightly toasted. Sure. I was like, okay. Chive cream cheese, lightly spread on one side. Okay, we can do that. Okay. Red onion, 3 slices. Sure. Cucumber, 3 slices. Sure. Tomato slices, 3, thin. Red tomato. Sure. Munster cheese. Yep, we have that. You have Munster cheese? Yep, we have that. Okay. And 1 scrambled egg. And I want you to throw it all in there. I want you to mash it together, and a tall glass of no pulp orange juice. My friends were looking at me like I was crazy. They're like, just order something on the menu. I was like, no, this is what I want. And the waiter's like, sure, yeah, sure, no problem. It'll be about 10 minutes. I was like, oh, okay, big shot, sure. And sure enough, 10 minutes later, this thing arrived on my table, right? Now, yes, this is not the actual sandwich that I ate 23 years ago in Ann Arbor, but this was a lot like it. It was perfectly crafted. It had every ingredient just pouring out of it. It's as if it came from the heavens and fell onto my plate with like a choir of angels singing down onto my plate. Ah, you ordered this. And I took a bite, and I forever, 23 years later, I'm talking about the experience of they did that for me. My sandwich. This is what I ordered. It came exactly the way I wanted, and I couldn't have been happier. Dick Siegel's song has a lyric that says, when we leave this place, we'll be laughing out loud, smiling so hard we'll draw a crowd. And we'll say, what's up, man? We don't need to boast about the eggs, over easy, hash browns, and toast. We go to Angelo's. And that's what we want from our favorite restaurants, right? Is these memories that 23 years later, you can pull out of your back pocket and say, this is something that mattered to me. This is something that resonated with me. And the artisan chefs, bakers, cooks at that restaurant, and many other restaurants around the country. That's what they do for their audience, their patrons, the diners. They are nothing without those people. Similarly, this is something that has driven me as someone who designs brand stories, someone who works with people who present, whether it's internal presentations for internal meetings with your company or external opportunities at conferences or seminars. There has to be an experience you leave your audience. When I left Angelo's that day, this is what I looked like. That's not me. Yes, and that's a burger, not a breakfast sandwich. I know. But look at the smile on this man's face. Okay. This is the kind of experience that we need to create for our audiences. Me and my happy Ann Arbor sandwich. We can do that for your audiences so that when you take the stage, virtual or in person, that you deliver this well-built sandwich and the recipe that you can use at any time is something that you can find in your back pocket. The sandwich and the recipe create the back pocket experience so that you can, at any time, inspire the audience you're in front of. This is what we want, everybody. We want them salivating over what we've told them. That's the point. That's what a back pocket story is. The recipe creates memorability, and it's something that you can use whenever you want. Now, a sandwich, as opposed to a pasta dish or a gyro plate. Why a sandwich? Because a sandwich gives us recipe structure. Okay, so this is a familiar icon to all of us. This is called the menu icon. It also looks like a burger, does it not? Or a sandwich. Bun, meat, bun. The reason why I choose sandwich, despite the story that has been branded in my head for 23 years, is because the sandwich gives us essential structure to think about when we're putting together a presentation or any kind of speaking material. There's a recipe, right? Bun, meat, bun, or in the case of material that we speak, intro, content, conclusion. If it doesn't sound like rocket science, it's because it's not. But the thing is, for those who don't present often or who are not in this space often, sometimes it can overwhelm us. Frankly, it can overwhelm someone like me who talks and speaks all the time. But having a recipe that helps us move from section to section is essential. So you see here on the bottom, it says recipe, 15%, 70%, 15%. Just like you would open up a recipe in a cookbook, you know that a quarter cup of this, half an ounce of that, a pound of this, right? Similarly, when you are putting together the sandwich model of your presentation, 15% of the time you spend in your presentation is up here in your introduction or that top bun moment. 70% is here in the thick content section of your presentation, or, you know, your meat, your cheese, your veggies, the ingredients. And then, of course, the final 15% is that bottom bun, the conclusion experience that you leave your audience before you skip away. Right? So, top bun, 15% of your experience. You have your ingredients, the meat, cheese, and veggies. These are the key ideas. 70%. Okay, that's that part of that recipe. And then your bottom bun, 15%. Okay? So, let's dive in together now and to see what these specific components of building the sandwich and how it leads to your back pocket story experience. Okay. It all starts, of course, with the top bun. Now, think of it this way. The first thing that you do when you bite into your favorite sandwich, your teeth, your mouth, your lips, your tongue, it hits the bread, whatever's on top, assuming it's not an open face sandwich. Someone said that. What if it's an open face sandwich? Okay. We're talking talking bun meat bun. Okay. So the first thing that you sink your teeth into is that first piece of bread. And we'll talk about what that means. Essentially, we have to figure out, how do we start this thing? Because diving in to the ingredients first, what I do, how I do it, what we do, how it works, okay, that comes later. We first have to create an experience that says, how am I going to get these people's attention? That's a key factor here. The attention spans of our audience. Okay, so to help us understand how important it is to choose the right kind of top bun experience, I'm going to introduce you to this goldfish. What does a goldfish have anything to do with this? So back in 2000, there was a study attributed to Microsoft in one of their Canadian branches. I want to say out of Toronto. I have the references for all these studies, and you can actually find this on your own too. If you type in Microsoft goldfish study. Now, the researchers wanted to find out, how long of an attention span do human beings have? And this was in the year 2000. Okay. So what they did was however researchers do it, they tested humans' ability to focus on one thing at one time. And what they found in 2000, I think they followed maybe 35 to 40 participants. So they found that on average, it was 12 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then it was, okay, I want to look somewhere else. I want to do something else. I want to focus on something else. 12 seconds in the year 2000. 13 years later, in 2013, they did the test again. And they found that the average human attention span went from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. Okay, so let's think about what's going on there. What's a clear difference between the year 2000 and the year 2013? One of the clearest differences are these things, right? Our phones, the digital age, cell phones, iPads, everything that we have that dings and bings and whistles and chimes and distracts us even more than we could possibly imagine back in 2000. Huge factor in how we can keep our attention on certain things. Now, by comparison, this is what leads us to the goldfish. The researchers also wanted to compare human attention span to, one of the lower ended species of the planet, which is the goldfish, which they're cute and all, but there's really not much to them. So they tested the attention span of goldfish. And what they found was that goldfish had an attention span of 9 seconds before they wanted to find something else to pay attention to. So in the year 2013, human beings, 8 seconds, goldfish, 9 seconds. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that human beings are dumber than goldfish. No, that's not what it means. It means that human beings can't pay attention to something longer than goldfish. Maybe it's what that means. What it means is that human beings are immeasurably distracted by the world around us, and audiences need compelling reasons to pay attention to something. Now, some people push back on that study. I did too, and said, wait a second, 8 seconds? I'm sorry, I can sit and binge Netflix for 2 hours without distraction. Sure, I'll get up, get popcorn, go to the bathroom, whatever. But I'm paying attention to more than 8 seconds. Agreed. I think everyone would agree to that. The point is that we are distracted. And if we're going to catch the attention of our audiences, we have to do better. So even in 2013, we knew that. I think we've known that throughout time. The more attractive we can be to an audience with our words, with our mannerisms, the more likely they're going to pay attention to us. Don't just take my word for it. And this is not just my opinion. This is not just qualitative stuff we're talking about, because I am introducing Microsoft and studies with goldfish and all that stuff. But let's talk to someone who has been studying this his entire life. A gentleman, a professor of psychology out of Princeton named Uri Hassan. Uri studied, quote unquote, the brain on communication. What he did was he set up an experiment where a speaker would have their brain monitored by MRI imaging to figure out what's going on in a speaker's brain when they're speaking to an audience. And the audience would be wearing their MRI imaging machinery as well, because they wanted to know what happens to an audience when they're communicated to. And what can we learn about that? So during this experiment, when the brain activity of the speaker was monitored, the wavelengths went something like this: up and down, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, right? You can imagine I'm talking, I'm telling a story, I'm doing stuff, I'm speaking to you. This is what my brain is doing. The audience, by comparison, let's get rid of this. The audience, by comparison, their brain waves were I'm listening, boo, 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 boo. I'm listening. I'm speaking, I'm listening. Now, when the speaker got to moments of his or her material, and the material evoked brain activity in the audience, stories of empathy, stories of connection, stories that gave the brain some dopamine or oxytocin that made it come alive and spark, stories that activated the mirror neurons in the listeners, that through neural coupling started to change the wavelengths of the audience members from side to side. I'm listening. Remember, the speakers is going up and down. From side to side to mirroring the brain activity of the speaker. So what that shows, neuroscientifically speaking, is that what we choose for our top bun moments, these first moments of meeting and being with our audiences, matters more than you can imagine. You can actually change their minds by speaking and giving them certain kinds of content that not only bonds them to the information you want to give them, but it also bonds them to you. So our choices for how we begin are so important. And you ever walked into a bakery? You ever think about how overwhelming your choices are? Here are some, I did a little research of my own, okay? Here are some kinds of choices you have when you're at the bakery. You can choose a baguette, a bagel, brioche, ciabatta, challah, English muffins, focaccia, Irish soda bread, multigrain, naan, pita, potato, pumpernickel, rye, marble rye, sourdough, white bread, whole wheat, 9-grain whole wheat. I mean, it's endless. There are so many choices because the flavors matter. How you start sets the tone for everything. Don't think that flavors matter. Don't think that you need to find the right combo. Well, let's test this out here. Okay, so here we have a couple different foods here. We have a salmon fillet in the top left. And I don't know any of you out there, but has anyone ever dipped a piece of salmon fillet in a vat of chocolate? The thing on the right is a chocolate bar. My guess is no one is raising their hand right now. How about when you grab that ale from the barkeep? Is anyone going, oh, let me have a swig of my Pilsner. Oh, but first I'd like a piece of spearmint gum. You see anyone doing those things? Are these the right combos? Does anyone make those choices? No. Why? Because it could lead to this, right? Jim Carrey is not impressed. This is from Dumb and Dumber, of course. All right. It could be nauseating, literally, in terms of the flavors and the dissonance that's created, but also to your audience because it didn't work. This is not right. You ever walked into a kitchen or eaten something that didn't agree with you because the flavors didn't make sense? It's nauseating. Sorry, Jim. Okay, which leads me to a story. I've been telling stories, but this is a story about when food experiences work. You heard my sandwich story. I have one that even goes further back. I remember being 7 years old, My family took a trip to San Francisco. We did the quintessential San Francisco things, riding on the trolley things, down the big hills or whatever, eating at all the fun restaurants. And we stopped at a candy shop. My parents, jokesters, they gave me a piece of chocolate candy. They're like, here, this is one of the best pieces of chocolate candy that San Francisco has to offer. Fine. So I bite into it. And immediately I was like, what on earth is this? And I pulled it away. And it was like this gooey, drippy, fibery sort of thing. I was like, no, what is that? And they were like, ha, 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 that's a chocolate covered date. I was like, ah, ha, 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 ha. I'm scarred for life. That goes back even further than the 23 years of the sandwich that was made for me in Ann Arbor. I won't touch dates, chocolate covered dates, anything that looks like that larva size. I won't touch it. I won't do it. I can't. On the opposite end, my late Bubby, grandmother in Yiddish, we used to go to her house for all of our holidays in our family. And it was welcomed. We were told there's a ton of us. I have like 15 first cousins, and we were all crazy running around. And she would tell us that we couldn't run and we couldn't play and we couldn't have fun. And we just had to sit there and try to be good children. That never happens because we're kids, and what are you going to do? A distinct memory I have from her home in Lincolnwood, Illinois, was the smell of her kitchen. Traditional sweet and sour cabbage soup. That, I know it might sound, maybe some people are going, oh, that sounds gross. There's nothing like that memory, that sensational memory I have, where if the smell of it, if I'm in a traditional deli or other kinds of traditional food companies, restaurants, I immediately am drawn back to my Bubby's kitchen when I am 6, 7 years old. It's remarkable what the right story can do to set off the rest of your presentation. And all that's just the top bun. See where we're going with this? You see how many details are here? So we have our top bun placed on. We have chosen the right way to start. Okay, the right story, the right statistics, the right anecdotes about maybe a personal experience, maybe something in the workplace. There's always something that will set the tone the right way. Then you got to dive in to the key ingredients, the meat and cheese and veggies of your presentation. This, if you remember, this is the 70%. Now, as much time as you thought we spend on the top bun, that's only 15% of your presentation. The majority of your time is spent here and giving your audience the objective, goal-driven information that they came for, or at least they thought they came for. The key ideas. Now, the key ideas only work if they are connected by the juices or the sauces that flow one idea to the next. Same for the combinations that we are getting, that you're putting together for your top bun moments. You have to think the same way when you're putting together your ingredients. So think of the juices and the sauces and all the ketchups and the mustards and the mayos and all these things that are keeping that sandwich experience together, keeping that presentation experience together, and it all needs to make sense and it all needs to flow. There are some key ideas. About the key ideas you need to keep in mind when you're putting together this kind of information. And there's 4 key elements here. So as you can see here, you can all read. There's tone and transition, which has to do with what your voice sounds like. We'll dive into each one of these things. Gestures and movements. So like, what are you doing with your body? What are you doing with your hands? Okay, you might see throughout this presentation, I like to move my body and my hands. And in person, oh my gosh, I can't stand still. But it's not just moving to move, it's moving with intention. Giving credit, which is about remembering that we learn from other people. I'll get there in a second. And then, of course, staying away from cliches, which means be unique as much as you can. So first and foremost, tone. So this is the volume of your voice. Are you on purpose speaking loudly because it makes sense? Or are you bringing your voice down so that you can emphasize a particular point in a way that draws your audience in? You want them to lean in when you're speaking, which has a lot to do with what I mentioned before about Uri Hassan's research and something called neurocoupling. The other word for that is called the lean in effect. And your voice can do that, can draw people in. It can also repel people. So we have to think very clearly about how we're going to use our voice to support our words. Make sense? So I mentioned briefly about gesturing. Okay. We should never be moving. We should never be flailing. We should never be hopping around on stage or in one of these boxes unless there's a reason to do it. So you might ask yourself, well, how do I know when the right time is? There are moments in your presentation that you know require that kind of pointing, that kind of fist pumping, that kind of open armed greeting. You'll know because those moments will stand out in your presentation as key moments. And those key moments deserve a key gesture. Okay, so I think we can all agree that there's nothing new under the sun, right? Maybe Steve Jobs and the iPhone, iPod, that whole revolution. Yeah, that was new. Nothing like that ever existed. But generally speaking, we all are doing what we all are doing. So a lot of the work that we determine or call our own comes from other people. And it's a really professionally driven sign if you can pay homage to the people who gave you some of these ideas to chew on and build from. That's why I talk about Dick Siegel, which is why I talk about Uri Hassan, which is why I talk about the goldfish in the Microsoft study. These aren't just my ideas. And when I can acknowledge that, it draws in my audience to say, oh, look at him and how he did his research. Look at her and how she's making mention of those people. Yeah, because we learn from others and giving credit to them is key in terms of delivering key ideas. And then there's cliches. Well, Paul, you just said that we have to talk about other people's work. So how can I be unique and not be cliche, and say the buzzwords and the phrases that everyone else does? How do you reconcile that? Everyone can put their own twist on something, right? One of the core principles of a back pocket story, what we're talking about creating right now, is what differentiates you, your why factor. No one has your experiences. No one has your experiences in the workplace. No one has your experiences in your personal life. These make you unique, and those take you far away from cliches. How many of us out there already know the cliches of our own industries? The leading gurus say, we want a team mentality here. These are outdated, stale, boring, we can do better kinds of phrases. When you tap into your uniqueness, you inspire your audience to stay awake and attentive to your work. Okay, so we talked about a lot of parts of this key ingredients section. So let's put it all together. All right. I'm going to read a quote by Steve Jobs. I mentioned him earlier about the iPad, nothing new under the sun. I think he's one of the more inspirational figures of, at least in terms of business and technology building, of our age. So I have a quote that I'm going to read everybody from Steve Jobs, and I'm going to do it in one version A and another version B. And I want you to think which one resonated better for you. Okay? So here's number one. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. Steve Jobs. Version A. Okay. We ready for version B? Version B. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. Steve Jobs. If you want to write in the comments which one you think is better, go for it. Okay. I think I've tried to be a little dramatic in terms of one version versus the other, but I'm trying to make a clear point, which is there are very specific things that we can do with the same material that can drive the conversation in one negative direction or in the other positive direction. I see that Shelley chimed in that version B. Yes, version B. Yeah, I would choose version B. Right. Now, Shelley, you just chimed in, and I'm about to get into the bottom bun section of building our sandwich. Did you want to hop in here and make any kind of announcements or give us some insight?
I would love to. And I just want to say, we have people watching. This is live. We are streaming on multiple platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And we are excited because this workshop is specifically for speakers, presenters, people with talent that go on stage and tell stories. And Paul, what you're saying, it's like, I cannot wait to hear the rest of it. And I know you have a challenge for our audience, and we want to thank you for being here today. And I'm going to put it back on over to you, and we'll finish this off. I know we've got a full hour, but we're getting there. And how does it feel? How are you feeling?
Great. I could talk all day, but I won't because I only have an hour. But I am. Shelley is keeping tabs on comments and that sort of section. I am obviously focused on content. I'm trying to speak to everybody as if you're in the room with me, of course, trying to model what I hope that you will do when you're in front of your audiences. I see that there have been some comments, Shelley, over on the side. I haven't looked at any of them. I'm sorry. Is there anything that I can address right now or a question that was asked? Because I'm happy to take some time here to do that. Or are people just saying hi from different places? That's fine.
Pretty much. Yeah. Okay. And on YouTube. And then I know that we had some testimonials from some people that you've worked with.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So in fact, let me put this one on. Well, nope. Let's go back. Let's see. Yeah.
Well, Jeffrey Tambor, the award-winning actor, that's not a bad testimony to put up too, right?
Yeah. And then we had another one, which was, let's see, from Sean Astin.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Everyone know Rudy or Lord of the Rings or Stranger Things 2 or The Goonies. So throughout my career, and this is not bragging, this is my opportunities. I've been honored to work with people who I thought knew this stuff, and they do, except when we are in front of live audiences and we don't have the script and we're not the character and the camera isn't rolling. It takes a different kind of structure and a different kind of mindset. So even the folks that do this for a living are doing this work too. So it should make you feel like you're in good company. Shelley, I can take it from here. I'm ready to dive into the last section of the sandwich. Here we go.
Awesome.
Right. And we remember it's our bottom bun, right? So we've had our top bun experience, 15% of our presentation, we're introducing, we're wetting the palate, they're sinking their teeth into the content. We get to our content, it's that meat, cheese, and veggies, it's the key ideas, the key ingredients, 70% of the time to deliver the information that they thought they came to hear. And then there's the bottom bun, that final 15%. So just as you started, you must conclude. But there's a difference here. So think about all the flavors and the juices and all of the collected goodness at the bottom of that sandwich. You know, how many of you take that last piece of bread and just sop up all the juices on your plate? Okay. So the bottom bun experience, that last 15%, has every bit of information that you've discussed in it. It's your chance to wrap things up, and not in a standard academic clinical way that, with a slide that says, conclusion, and then summarize what you've talked about. This is, as you introduced the experience, you want to leave people feeling connected to you. You want to leave them on an upward trajectory moment, so that, like what Dick Siegel says, they'll be snapping their fingers and laughing out loud when they leave your restaurant. And by your restaurant, I mean your speaking moment. You really want them to be bounding out the door because of that final story, case study, clip, music you played, something that makes them go, I feel compelled to act. Because remember, everybody, this is the goal right here. This happy gentleman eating his delicious sandwich. Hey, it's the best day of my life. That's what we want, right? So you might be saying, but Paul, you're doing a virtual presentation. And virtual is very different than in person. You haven't even explained what, the difference is, or how do we negotiate a virtual space? And that's actually what's next. Because you still can make the same kind of positive effect to your audience, even in a virtual space. And I have some key tips, the right kinds of ingredients that you can use to continue to develop that sandwich so your recipe becomes that back pocket experience, even in a virtual space. Okay. Because there's a lot of differences between how we navigate the worlds, right? So the first is what we dress like. Okay. Now, I want to make a point here. I'm not saying that this is not now becoming a how do you present during a virtual presentation. The focus still is how do you engage your audience in a memorable way? And how do you do that in a virtual environment? So dress the role. So meaning, okay, this is a fun little picture. Business on top and party on the bottom. That kind of world, the first days of the pandemic, right? I think those days are over. I can stand up and show you what I'm wearing right now. Trust me, I am wearing a sweater. I am wearing slacks. I'm wearing dress shoes, because if I were to walk out on stage in person at the local ballroom or in the conference room or whatever, I'm not going to walk out in my pajama bottoms and bunny slippers with a suit on top. I'm going to dress the role. I'm going to put my suit on. I'm going to put my sports coat on. I'm going to press my pants, iron my shirt. You should be doing the same, because when people look at you, they want to feel that connection with you. And the more they feel that connection with you, the more they're going to feel your content, bond themselves to you and your content, and you're going to make that memorable mark. So this is one of my more favorite ones, is backgrounds, right? How many of you see like, oh, I'm speaking to you from the moon. I'm in Paris. Look at me. I'm on a dinosaur. Okay. If this is a casual meeting between you and colleagues or whatever, then it's fun to be lost in space like this lady here. Okay. Otherwise, when you are a featured presenter and you're trying to impress, attract, inspire, and educate your audience, stick to tidying up your real background. Okay. I'm speaking to you from my home office. I, on purpose, keep my background blank, and I'm in the corner of my office here. I keep it blank because I use this floating box style to teach. When people hear your words, put a background behind you. Use your background in a way that's going to amplify your professionalism and make your content even stickier because they feel that you've put in the work to how you look, both in your body and your environment. So then there's eye contact. Now, this is so awkward when we are presenting in a virtual space. Obviously, in person, when you're on a stage or you're in a conference room, you can look around and really make eye contact with people. We don't have that luxury here with these ridiculous things peering us in our faces. I have this big bright light. I mean, this is called a ring light. I have it right in my eyes so that you can see my illuminated face. And if I'm going to make eye contact with you folks, I have to look straight into this white light here. I would rather look at all your faces. But that is not an advantage that we have or a luxury that we have with virtual presentations. So what can you do? What's the practical advice? Take a page out of the playbook of Austin Powers. I might be dating myself. I can't believe I'm saying that. But Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, played by Mike Myers. He's an international spy who has an affinity for modeling and taking photography, a spy from the 60s and 70s. And his thing was, yeah, baby, yes, yes, look at the camera. No, no, yes, no, no, yes, yes. Oh, right, baby, I'm spent. Right, that was his thing. How did I do? I think I did well. But Austin makes a point, is you have to engage that camera. It's the only way that you're going to make that human connection with the people on the other side. Now, Paul, it doesn't feel like there's people on the other side. This is weird. I can't feel the energy of the room. I understand that. What choice do you have? If you're not doing an in-person presentation and you have this virtual environment, well, then you have to imagine that people are listening and watching, which is what I'm doing with all you guys and gals. So it's not a choice that you can make to say, well, I'm just going to leave my energy at the door and just, I don't know, be ho-hum about delivering information. You have to come straight at your audience with full engagement. And otherwise, you're going to lose them. We live in a point and click on demand kind of world, and people might be watching this later. So I have to bring the same kind of energy no matter what. Think about going to your favorite Broadway play, like Hamilton or Wicked or whatever. Friday night energies are always higher than like Sunday matinees, right? Friday night, you have the people going out for drinks or dinner, and then they see a play and the energy's high. And I'm sure the cast loves it, the people putting on the play. But Sunday matinees are more like children and grandparents, and the energy might be low. Do you think Lin-Manuel Miranda and cast just decide they're not going to put in an A+ effort because the energy of the audience is down? They didn't feel it. They didn't feel it. No, neither can you. Another key idea when you are in a virtual setting or in in-person setting is how fast or slow you speak. I did some of that with the Steve Jobs quote where I was trying to mix up my cadence. It is nerve-wracking for a lot of us to get in front of others, whether it's virtual or in person, and to say something. It's called glossophobia. It's not a DSM, like diagnosable illness, but a lot of people suffer from that debilitation. I can't do it. Public speaking is hard. Here's the key. Slow it down. Even if you think you're speaking at the speed of molasses, okay, the truth is you're going to sound more fluid, more together, organized than you would if you were speeding and going real fast because the energy or your nerves or excitement of the moment is. The slower you go, the less fillers. You know what I mean, right? You know what I mean. The less fillers you'll have, and the clearer your message will be. Particularly in a virtual environment where you feel like you can't connect with your audience. Well, let's not miss the boat anymore and speak too quickly for those who are tuning in. And then finally, I know this kind of sounds obvious, and I hope I'm trying to exude this through my presentation, is if you aren't confident as the speaker, then how are you going to expect your audience to have confidence in you, in your expertise, in your content? We need to walk out on our virtual stages, in our in-person stages, ready to take the world on because our audiences deserve it. Specifically, audiences that might tune in later. When they click on this video and start seeing you talk, bring it. And you better have that kind of confidence because that's what they're looking for. Someone who's going to take them on the ride, to build that sandwich, to adhere to a recipe that's going to make the kind of back pocket experience you're looking for. I should actually change that. Back pocket story. Build your sandwich. That recipe goes in your back pocket. And these are the stories that we can tell and the speaking material that we can use in nearly any speaking moment you come across. So with that, I know I've spoken a lot. I didn't really have a choice. Sort of a one-sided thing today. Thank you, Shelly, for jumping in here. Shelly has said that you can see scrolling at the bottom, there's ways of contacting me. You can get on my Calendly link for a 15-minute call. What would we talk about? I'll get to that in a second. You can also get out your phones right now and click the QR code. That will bring you to the Contact Me page on my website. Yes, you can even see my website and whatever's on there to inspire you about speaking tips and see me in action and my philosophies and all that stuff. So click on that QR code. There will be another time to do that before we conclude. And before we conclude, I wanted to take this time to challenge you guys and gals and everyone out there. Okay, so when you get on my calendar for that 15 minutes, okay, you can have one of two things prepared, and I'd entertain both of them with you. One is what I call the PB&J. Now, the PB&J is an exercise where I want you to literally write out the steps for how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And on our call, you can read me those steps, and we can see how good you are at writing out steps for a PB&J sandwich. What's the point of this exercise? The point is that the details matter, okay? I'm not going to say much more than that, but when we are giving people directions, when we are asking them to pay attention, when we want them to learn something, the more we can do to help them along the way, the better it is for everybody. And as a presenter, it's all about your audience. So what are we doing to make sure that they can have a successful experience? So challenge number one, write out the steps to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Get on my calendar and tell me how you would do it. Okay? Make sense? Number two, and this is more of a one-to-one match with this build your sandwich back pocket story experience. I challenge any of you in our 15-minute call to give me your 2-minute brand story. This is your 2-minute why you do what you do story. 2 minutes, that doesn't seem like a lot of time. It's not. Paul, you had 60 minutes. I did. But I'm challenging you. Do you think you can do it? Do you think you can, with me, come up with a way to succinctly, emphatically, enthusiastically, creatively, really get to the core of why you do what you do? That, as I mentioned earlier, why we do what we do, that is the unique factor. That's the differentiator. So if you can identify that and only spend 2 minutes saying that, expressing that, well, then you have set up a foundation for you to deliver some phenomenal experiences for your audiences. So those two challenges make sense? Okay. I wanted to put this back up there one more time. so that everyone can get a snap of how to contact me. I hope to see you on my calendar. And with that, folks, I hope that I've left you with some delicious food for thought. Okay, that's all right. We are running into the end time of our time together. And if there's anything that I want to leave you with, it's this. I talk about, you have to tell me what tell me what your why story is. What makes you unique? What's your differentiator? Okay. So I thought I would share with you what mine is. Not everybody knows this about me. And some of us might be saying, well, how personal do you get? How not personal do you get? I'm a big believer in our personal stuff makes us different. Okay. So for me, okay, why I do what I do, which is design brand stories and get people ready for stage and inspire audiences. Okay. I am a survivor of childhood leukemia. What does that have to do with anything? Why did I tell you that? Well, because when you go through that experience, I was 3 to 5, 4 to 6. Can you imagine what that does to a family, thinking that their child's not going to make it? This was in the early 80s, so things were a little different. The prognosis wasn't all that great, but I made it. I'm okay, despite a lot of cranial radiation and bone marrow transplants and all these really horrific things that reshape the way a childhood should be. I come through, though. I'm okay. But I get to see the faces around me of my parents, my older sister, my younger sister, who wasn't alive during that time. And I see that this stuff sticks with us. Not just our family's experience, but all the things that might skew our development. This didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. This isn't really what I signed up for. Yeah, I think all of our lives have that. So what can we do about it? For me, when I saw those faces of worry, concern, stress, trauma, my thought was, what can I do to entertain these people? Is there anything I can do to make them happy or distract them? Maybe we can write a story, or maybe I could be goofy or silly. And that kind of attitude, I just walked right into my career, starting at age 6 after my remission and positive results from all my tests. Is that every chance that I get to be in front of an audience, I'm trying my darndest to leave those people feeling better, different, having learned something. That's what drives me. And if we think that we have all the time in the world to get this stuff right or to make the right decisions, I think we're all fooling ourselves. Time is fleeting. So what are we going to do to make the best of it for the people who are looking at us? That's what drives me. And I hope that you have found some morsels and are inspired to contact me to start talking about these things in your own life. You don't have to get into trauma. Please tell me about the great things in your life. But these are the things that matter. And with that, I wanted to thank everybody.